Hello, everyone. This is Mary Kurek with Frontrunners Innovate, and I have some beautiful ladies with me today. One whom I believe you know already if you've been watching the interviews, but the smiling face you see before you right now is Maria Dolores, and we'll get her to introduce herself a little bit more, but know that she is founder of the Human Contract. We're going to find out more about that and some other things that she's involved in, because, you know, as women, we multitask. So we're not just linear. We are involved in lots of things. And so we'll find out all about that. Speaking of being involved in a lot of things, Alana Stott, who you've probably met here before on Frontrunners Innovate, is co-hosting with me today. And she is more recently an author of some wonderful books, but we call her our fundraiser expert because her book that's coming out now about how to raise funds is really important to a lot of us, whether you are, you know, into an NGO or a charity or working on a project trying to get the money together, or whatever you may be doing to try to create some good. Alana knows the answer to how to get that done. So Alana, I want to bring you forward and let you talk about the security work and some of the other things that you guys are doing real quickly, and then we'll get on and ask Maria a little bit more about her.
Awesome. Thank you for having me again, as always. Yeah, actually, every time you say who is Alana Stott, it's really difficult to answer. So I've now kind of
Your husband says the same thing about himself too. I just want you to know that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty multi-hyphenated, but I guess I've kind of shortened it down to problem solver and protector. Those are the two areas of my life I think would be the easiest way to say. So I write books that solve problems in the world, I guess. And my security company that I run along with my husband is about protecting people around the world in humanitarian causes. But philanthropic causes are probably the most important part to me. So raising funds, which is how I ended up writing the book, How to Ask for Money. So that's my latest book that comes out in May. And it really does what it says in the tin, just shows people how to ask for money. Along with that, I write children's books that are about empowering and hopefully inspiring children. And my memoirs is out in July.
Wow. I don't know when you find the time. She is a new mother again. So we must say that, Harley being the latest edition last year. So yeah, let's move on now and let's find out about Maria. Maria, I think, remember when I first met you, I said, what you're doing sounded so fascinating, so different to me that I had to find out a little bit about it. So first, give us a little bit about your background and bring us from there up to where you are now and what you're doing.
Okay. Thank you. And thank you again, Mary, for having me here. I really, really appreciate it. Yeah, my name is Maria Dolores, and I am born and raised here in Sweden. I feel sort of semi-American because my mom lived half her life in the States, in California and Florida. I've been working about more than 20 years with human resources and leadership. And I worked in the Swedish steel industry, in the forest industry, at the Swedish prosecution authorities. And also regarding security, I trained management teams in sorry, the Swedish words are popping up, but it's you know, risk and crisis management. Yes. and business risk. So so I trained. We've been working with big brandings, big brands, and also in the Swedish public sector, so both private and public sector, and then in what was a big shift in my life, you know, I've always been interested in society and in our human history, how we as human have developed, and yeah, and also currently I'm helping a friend of mine in her funeral business. So I've been a representative at over 1,000 funerals. I've seen all of the major religions and a lot of secular, lots of different kinds of religions. I've seen all ages, all backgrounds, you know, the super rich lady, or the poor guy from the street, or the small infant, and the oldest being 107 years old.
Wow.
And we are all humans, beyond religion and beyond party politics and beyond, the surface and all the labels that we have, that we put on ourselves and each other. We are all humans. So in 2015, I wrote and I've written other books, but in 2015, my book, A State of Grace, Human Rights and Human Obligation, was published. And the book is about how we have both rights and responsibilities. So that was the sprout of the foundation that we have now started. And the foundation is both here in Sweden and in the States, in Texas.
Oh, in Texas. Oh, neat.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us about the mission, basically the goals and the mission of the organization.
The mission is a more mature humanity. It's just that. Looking at our human background, how we have had, we come from 300,000 years ago. We had the technology of fire and stone, and from each shift in our human history, we grew in groups, growing bigger and bigger. And today we're standing on the nation-centric thinking, right? We have the justice system with big cracks in it, because the justice system is nation-centric, and we have technology again supporting and driving us to the next level, a more global, local world. The political system is shaking a lot. Again, nation-centric thinking and technology, and so we're global. Three of us in different. Just this call is illustrating. And previously, media, the what we refer to as the third state of power, that role was to audit the justice system and the political system. Now the media is already global. So how do we make this transition? So the human contract is to drive and to support that, so that when we're going from the nation-centric thinking, and to support the leaders of the world, that we need to broaden the perspective, and like I said, beyond political system, beyond the justice system, and underneath that, what we have been building in our past, at the core, we're all human. So it's about how can we live with more dignity, but including all religions, and just talking about life here and now. So it's leadership for citizens for the coming 100 years.
So I know I'm sorry, go ahead, Alana.
No, it's really interesting, because it's something I've been thinking about a lot. It was obviously the COVID movement, I guess, that brought the Zoom into it. And I think the discussion of this global world came in. And I was like, is that ever going to be possible with the amount of different laws and rules? And even just what we were speaking about earlier with, a whole country with 37 million people that doesn't allow women to be educated. If we move into this global world, how do we who's going to be the person who aligns everyone to make everyone work in the same way? Is that possible?
So, thank you. So the human contract is a very, very thin framework, just stating that we have rights and we have responsibilities. So the rights is derived directly from United Nations Declaration of the Universal Human Rights. But, that's a list, and that's 30 paragraphs. So condensing that, and then looking at what does it really mean in an interpersonal perspective. And that's why these 7 principles. So the first 3 is personal for every single human being. we have rights and responsibilities within body, thought, and emotion. So our physical and mental wellness. And we know, as of today, we're not even living the first principle, right, with the body. We have about 45 million slaves in the world today, people who are buying and selling other people, which is, you know, we might think that we left that long time ago, like in our human history. We have not. We have never had as many slaves in the world today as we have today, never in our human history. On the other hand, we have never had as few in percentage. So it's, you know, it's part of our evolution. But body, thought, and emotion are physical and mental wellness. And then the coming three principles is communication, movement, and life. So the fourth principle, communication. You have the right in your freedom of speech. You have the right in your creations, but you have a responsibility how we speak and what we create, and that it comes back to dignity, you know, trying to express with dignity, trying to create with dignity. And it's a reminder and to have a conversation. What is that? Because as we know, it's different in different cultures. And then the fifth principle out of the seven is movement, like you talked about the pandemic. And, you know, we, like I say here on the globe behind me, we have been on this globe for more than 300,000 years. We have been moving across the globe, and we have, and we should have, the freedom of movement, but also responsibility within our movement, respecting cultures and respecting law, respecting justice system. And this movement, the human contract, is a movement for the coming 100 years. So how do we move with dignity? How do we respect the nature? And then so that's the fifth. So body, thought, emotion, first three personal. Communication and movement is the fifth. The sixth out of the seven principle is life. You have the right to your life. You have the right to live with whomever, wherever, and however you like, but not at the cost of any other. To respect others' lives, to respect. And so therefore we're working against forced marriages. And an example of that is illustrated by a movie we are creating in Uganda. The movie is called Cows for Girl, addressing forced marriages. And then the seventh principle is about our collective rights and responsibilities that we collectively have, as the United Nations Declaration of the Universal Human Rights are stating. We do have human rights, but we also have human responsibilities. In Swedish, we call this civilkurage. It's moral courage. And just one example in time, I'm thinking of 1989 in Berlin, when people just came together and just tore down the wall because people just had enough of it. And so many times in our human history, we have examples of this, and I'm sure daily, with whistleblowers speaking up and people coming together. And this is a reminder for humanity that united we can make a change, and united we will make a difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that is really important. I think, but if you took all those things together and everybody was able to do it, I think when I was in school, there was a club that I loved. It was the debate club. And it was so much fun. We would go down and we would learn how to debate and have a conversation between two opposing opinions without throwing mud, without being nasty, without using derogatory words, just having this conversation. And that seems to be what I find is missing in the world, that people are having a difference of opinions, and it's becoming like, well, we're going to cancel you and you're wrong and I'm right, and there's no discussion anymore. It seems to be this one-sided way of thinking, and nobody's respecting each other.
Right. So the listening is part of the communication. Yeah.
Yeah, and we don't practice that as much, I think, is what we should.
I know. And so that's why, like I said, so the human contract is a very thin frame, just stating that we have rights and we have responsibilities. And then we need to have a conversation. So what is that? It's not, there is no one single solution, but there are a billion solutions. And the framework, just stating that we have rights and responsibilities, but within that frame, this is leadership. You know, what I've been teaching in all my thousands of leadership trainings, just, you know, the leadership is just to have the framework, and within that framework, everything can grow. Everything can grow. And what kind of world do we really want? That's the question. What is mature world for you? What is a dignified world for you?
Yeah, and I also liked what you said about the, obviously mentioning the 45 million slaves in the world. It was something that I spoke about quite passionately with when what happened with George Floyd happened, and there was a huge movement about what had happened with him. And you know, that was great that we were addressing a subject, but it was frustrating for me because I was like, we're out there tearing down these statues and we're doing all these things. That's great, but there's still slaves in the world today that need help right now. We don't need to be looking at the past, because we're in this situation right now. And I think that was almost distracting from the fact that the one thing about human trafficking, it's nothing to do with race or anything. The color of your skin does not matter when it comes to a trafficker. It's how much money he can make from you. So that subject was quite passionate for me, I think, at the time, that we were able to get so focused on this way, where I was like, look over here, there's still stuff going on here.
Yes. And you know, I believe I'm going to say something wild, but I believe human trafficking can end only, like I said, the framework, people stating this is wrong. This is wrong. We're not doing that anymore. And if you cross this line, there will be consequences. And so to have a solid framework, people agreeing, this is wrong, we're not doing this anymore. And then from within, because the change needs to come from within, the people who are buying this, and the girls or the people who are trafficking themselves, as well as support organizations, as you know, there will be a big change, but the power needs empowerment. It needs to happen, I believe.
Yeah.
It sounds like policy, doesn't it? I mean, what you were saying is they need to make a decision. This is not going to happen anymore, and there will be consequences. To me, that's, you know, that's where change actually happens, when you get to the point of policy. You know?
Yeah. And I think that understanding that it's wrong as well, I think, really, because there is still people in the world who don't fully disagree with slavery and don't fully disagree with and will make, and I always say it as convenient logic almost, they come up with. It's like, well, you know, at least those people in Bangladesh that are working 23 hours a day stuck in a factory with their kids under the table are getting work. And it's like, but is that really how a human should be treated? Is that really just so they can get? And I think that I actually turned down a TED talk last year. I'd been invited to do this TED talk. It was about trafficking and slavery, and the the lady that was running the talk, really the long and the short of it, she wanted me to dilute this talk down so much. She didn't like mixing the words slavery and human trafficking, although I explained to her it's one of the same. She said it was going to be too hard for the audience to hear. She didn't want me. I know. I called
no,
out.
and this is exactly, and so the core of the human contract is, like I said, a more mature humanity. A more mature is to lessen fear. It's to lessen fear, becoming more brave. And so what she expressed was, fear.
Yeah,
people
fear.
She felt
I want to hear the truth. You can't handle the truth.
exactly.
It's well, we need to have that. We need to have the hard facts.
Yeah, and I think that it's uncomfortable, and I think that's what she said when I was.
Yeah, it's uncomfortable.
I said about online and Amazon and how we've become this like instant gratification world of like, I want it and I want it now and it's going to be here, and somebody's got to pay the price for that. Somebody's got to do it. And if we just went, actually, do I need to buy 10 sweaters this week, or can I just really save up and buy a high quality one that's produced ethically and the right way? And if we could just change your thinking, you like, stop buying so much and stop doing that. And she was like, you can't tell people that, you'll make them uncomfortable, it's not good. And I'm like, good, I want them to be uncomfortable. I want them to be.
The whole point.
Because and here is another reasoning that I had also in my book is about istima. Istima means learning. And when you go from one, you could call it either level of consciousness, if you go from this level of consciousness and you shift consciousness, or you go from this perspective and you broaden perspectives. You don't go from here and you just go from here and then you go more narrow-minded. You go into fear, you go into grief, anger, frustration, whatever, and then you shift. And that's so the istima process. And I've seen this both on personal level, facing fear myself. When I was I had a stalker, and it was really, really bad. And I had to, I had security people, and it was really, really scary. So just going through fear on an individual level, and all the different things that we can face as a human, shifting perspective of, and it's at the core our identity. Who am I if I'm not? If I lose an arm, who am I without my arm? Who, if I would, burn my hair, that's quite an identity for me. And so if I would burn my hair, that would also be an istima for me. My identity, who am I if I'm not? Or going through surgery in any kind, or health issues. And then broadening perspective, who am I if I'm not? We're all human. So on individual level, I've seen this in groups. Group dynamic is the same thing that is happening. We go from being kind of nice to each other, and then turbulence is coming up, and then we shift, and then we grow and we mature as groups. Same thing is organization, and working with security in organization. Same thing in society. So the biggest istimas we have today in society is, the nation-centric idea. Well, jag är svenska. At least I'm Swedish. We have the Swedish language. And who am I if I'm not Swedish? That's who I am. Really? We are more. Yes, that's part of who I am. But we are more than what we think we are. And so this shift that we're going through right now, this ISTMA process, and we are just starting to tumbling down. And what I also noticed is that some 10 years ago, I had a friend of mine saying, well, you know, if we would have aliens coming down on this planet, you know, humanity will unite, and because then we will have an exterior enemy, or, you know, someone else, and humanity. Now, I think we have created that alien in AI. And so within the coming 5-10 years, just the coming decade, it's really about to unite humanity. And so but what I'm saying also is the crisis or the fear experienced is important. It's a learning. So ISTMA means learning. It's a fictive word, actually, from Tolkien's. He was a Tolkien was a language professor. So ISTMA means learning. And so this learning curves, of course, they are different from different people individually, in groups, organization, in society. It takes longer. And that's why the human contract is for the coming 100 years, for the coming 3 generations, to support and just to give a thin but solid framework to support that process.
Maria, as we start to end up, I would like to end an interview with who you need to meet to help you move forward, because I get from you that this is a big plan. It's really comprehensive. And it starts with a mind shift, I think, and then kind of moves on from there. So based on where you think you're headed in this year, who do you think, what types of people do you think that you need to meet to help you move forward? If it's organizations or individuals, what types? Partners?
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
so many people. So the human contract, like I said, is the foundation. Around the foundation, we will be building institutes. And the institutes is to support already existing practitioners, organizations, NGOs to be more effective and collaborate better. You asked me if there is a person I would love to meet, like Richard Branson. He's very, I consider him very empathic, and I am sure he would understand the contract. And we do need we need all kinds of support. So, and this is just in the beginning.
All right. So maybe some other NGOs to learn, right, Alana?
Sorry, is the book out at the moment?
My book was published, but the title is in English, but the content is in Swedish, so I'm translating it. But yes, that will be translated this year.
You let us know about that once it's translated. Yes. Meanwhile, if you have a book cover, we'd love to have that. I don't know if you sent that to me already or not, but I'd love to have that. And so there's a few things that we'll need to have, but I think probably, as I was saying, maybe some other NGOs that have like minds and around the world that would want to maybe collaborate, become sort of a member of the movement, the human contract movement. So what I'm going to do is end it this way and saying, if you're interested in talking to Maria, or you're interested in getting involved, and you're watching this on YouTube or one of our other channels out there, or as a podcast on one of those channels, then go to www.frontrunnersinnovate.com, where you'll get more information about how to get involved with the human contract. And we'll definitely put Alana's information there too, if something she said has sparked some interest there as well. So I want to say thank you to both of you. Alana, thanks for spending some time here. Maria, from all the way from Sweden, thank you. And for both of you, for your big hearts and all the good works that you're doing out there to make some changes, because it's going to take a lot of people. And it's going to take a lot of big hearts, just like what you have. But, you know, you've got the guts, you've got the leadership that's moving out there. So thank you, both of you. I appreciate it. If you'll stay with me. Bye, everybody else.
Thank you.
Yeah.